Hello, time for another Man in Gray book review. Today's book is Damn Sure Right by Pokrass, published in 2011 by Press 53. It's 184 pages. Press 53 is an independent publishing company based in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, that specializes in short story collections. And Meg Pokrass is a writer of what's known as flash fiction. She's also an editor. She founded a publication called the New Flash Fiction Review. And this is the first of her six collections of flash fiction. Now, if you're not familiar with the term flash fiction, it's basically a short story that's 1,000 words or less. So, usually 2 or 3 pages at most. In the old days, they used to call these things short stories. And flash fiction reminds me a lot of a line that the great country songwriter Harlan Howard once said. Harlan Howard once said, "Writing songs is easy. Writing songs that people will pay money for is hard." And in the same way, it's not that hard to write a story that's 3 or 4 paragraphs long. Probably anybody could do it if they really tried, but it's not easy to write one of these flash fiction stories that's actually good, that's compelling, that creates characters that you're interested in. And Meg Pokrass is really good at that. Most of these stories are quite intriguing, despite the fact that they're only 3 or 4 paragraphs long, some of them. I read this book pretty much all the way through with short breaks. And that's probably not the best way to read flash fiction collections because there's so many of them in a collection. This one has almost, I think, about 50 stories in it. And after a while, if you just read them one after the other, they start to kind of blur together in your mind, particularly in the case of this collection, because all the stories are from a woman's point of view. And almost all of them, I think pretty much all of them, are about a relationship of some kind. Usually there's a female character who's in some kind of crisis, and this flash fiction story kind of focuses on that. So it's kind of like John Cheever stories, only much smaller. And so there is a kind of repetition that kind of sets in after a while. I mean, there's nothing wrong with writing stories from a female point of view, of course, and there's nothing wrong with writing about relationships. But when you're doing these flash fiction stories and they're all basically kind of from the same point of view and the same kind of setup, it does become rather monotonous if you read them all the way through. So I would recommend, if you read a book like this, that you read 5 or 6 at a time and then set it aside and come back later on. Some of these stories are quite dark. The title story, which is the opening story, Damn Sure Right, is about a woman who's just been raped. And it deals with the relationship between her and her boyfriend as they talk to the police and then go to the hospital. I mean, not all of them are that dark and not all of them are that violent, but they all deal with some kind of woman who's going through some kind of crisis of one kind or another. And a lot of them have an ambiguous ending to them. So if you want stories to be tied up in neat knots, you're not going to like these, and you're probably not going to like flash fiction, because flash fiction stories do tend to end rather abruptly. To give you kind of a taste of what these stories are like, I'm going to read one of them in its entirety, since these are fairly short. And this is actually one of the longer stories, but it's still pretty short. It's a story called Drunk Elephant. So this is one of the stories from this collection by Meg Pokrass. "Elephant," I said, looking at his flashcard with an ink splotch. "It has a trunk or a curly leg." "Oh," the doctor said. "Okay, yes." "And what is the elephant saying or doing?" he asked. "It's drunk," I said. "This may be the kind of elephant that looks for ways to get high," I said. "This is real. This really happens. I read about it in a science magazine," I added. "You must know this elephant," he laughed. I thought the doctor looked really striking in navy blue. His eyes were the color of a humid jungle sky. "So what about this here?" he asked, holding up another ink blot card. "Sharpie," I said. "Well, that is a Sharpie or a penis. It could be either thing, but it looks very friendly, as though it could make someone really productive or smarter than they are," I added. I looked at the clock in his office. It was broken, or time was moving too quickly. I loved being asked such weird questions, slyly teasing him about Freud and his penis envy theory. And I liked the doc's ageless smile and his tilted green eyes. "San Francisco," he said. "Thank God we live in San Francisco." He laughed. I laughed. I had no idea what he meant. "Why do you say so?" I asked. "Well," he said, "I'm not sure exactly. It just came into my head. I mean, you have very unusual thoughts, It's a compliment, he said. He looked at me as though he wanted to ask me a question. His eyes were purple today. For someone with an inoperable tumor, I had a pretty good sense of humor. He had a good sense of humor, too. I was proud of us for having good senses of humor. A shaft of sunlight trickled in through the skinny, tall window and lit up the doctor's face. For the first time, I noticed an asymmetrical mole on the right side of his cylindrical chin, misshapen, blue, and black and gray. He fingered his mole with his index finger. I squinted at it hard. I wanted to talk about the shape of that, I said. Go ahead then, he said. His right eye took on a tiny twitch. He opened his desk drawer and pulled out a hand-rolled cigarette. He lit it, sucked strongly, and handed it to me. It felt strangely normal taking it from his hand, sucking on it, holding the smoke inside my chest. The room became quiet and cozy. I told him that the shape of his mole looked like the shape of a continent. Which one? He said. This had something to do with drunk elephants and what I had read about pleasure-seeking mammals. Smoking, passing it back and forth. After 10 minutes or so, his mole became a smudge of dark chocolate. And that's the story. So again, a rather ambiguous ending. Here's a woman who, for some reason, is at a psychoanalyst, looking at ink blot cards, and she tells us halfway through that she's got an inoperable tumor, so she's dying probably. So why is she going to a doctor, an analyst? And why is the doctor giving her, why are the doctor and her getting high together? I mean, that doesn't sound ethical. And what's the deal with his mole? Is that a sign of cancer, or is that just a mole? What is it? So all these questions are left unanswered, and you have to kind of ponder it and kind of figure out what's going on yourself. And so pretty much all the stories are kind of like that. So if you like this kind of quirky fiction with ambiguous endings, you'll probably like this collection. As I said before, if you like stories that have a neat ending, you're probably not going to like any of these. They are short, so if you don't like one, you'll get through with it pretty quickly and be on to the next. The collection is called Damn Sure Right. The author is Meg Pokrass. This has been another Man in Great Book Review. Thanks for watching.